Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and the second card in our 12 cards of Christmas series. My goal is to make 12 cards. We'll see if that actually happens. You know, this time of year is wild. So anyway, I have done some prep work off screen. One of the things that I like to do to help mass production process go easier is to go ahead and do kind of the mundane tasks all at once, kind of just mindlessly, put on a show and go. One of those mindless tasks that has to be done is making card bases. Those are A2 card bases that I made from HAMMERMILL cardstock or Pinkfresh Studio cream cardstock, and then went ahead and stamped my little logo on the back. Those are all ready to go and be assembled. The other thing that I do that helps make mass production go quicker is if there's something that I can do multiples at one time, that is a plus. So in this case, I have this stencil from Spellbinders. I believe it's called Blizzard. I'll list it below. Let me double check here. Yes, it's called Blizzard. And I am able to put two A2 size panels, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panels, onto my little waffle flower sticky grid mat here and put the stencil on top. And because this is essentially a non-directional stencil, I don't have to worry about, making sure things are straight or lined up evenly, top to bottom. And I also know that I'm not going to need to stencil the entire panel, because the bottom of it is going to be covered up with what I'm going to make look like a snowbank. So I'm able to do 2 panels very, very quickly. This does not have to be perfect ink blending, and I'm not doing any shading, so that also makes it go very, very quickly. I'm using Concord and 9th powder ink because this matches some of the paper that I'm going to use to cut some trees out to make a very, very simple looking scene. So I mentioned, to make mass production go very quickly, doing multiple things at one time, but also doing all of the same task at one time. So I did all of my die cutting at one time. I made all of my card bases and cut all of my cardstock at one time. That makes things go much, much quicker, as opposed to assembling and die cutting each individual card as you go. That makes it go much, much slower. So I continued to do, I made 20 cards, and this went by fairly fast. One of the other things is to go with an already made color palette, or a color palette that works very well together. So I got this as a thank you gift from Concord and 9th, and this has, oh goodness, what colors are in here? NECTAR, BRICKYARD, HONEYCOMB, EUCALYPTUS, and powder. Those are the colors in there, and I thought those looked like a very fresh Christmas winter color palette. And so I just used those, and I just cut out enough little scraps so that I could do a whole bunch of die cutting. This is a Concord and 9th, not Concord and 9th, CZ Design and Simon Says stamp. It's called Winter Village, and these are very, very simple images. I left all of the windows in place. Some of them did pop out, and I didn't worry about that. I would just pop out the same row or whatever, so it didn't look weird. It looked a little more intentional, but for the most part, all of my little windows stayed in, and I just went through and, like I said, just zoned out and die cut everything at one time. This was a ready-made color palette that looked good together. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to dig around. It was ready to go. That is one thing that makes things very simple. This is another die set from Spellbinders. This actually goes with all of their, they have a cow and a goose and a duck and a chicken and a pig and sheep, and anyway, so I took an A2 size panel, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I roughly put that hill shape in the middle. And then when I took them apart, I had 2 panels. So I was able to get 2 panels from one pass of my die cut machine. So I was able to get enough to make 2 cards through one pass of my die cut machine. Again, anything that gives you multiples with one step is wonderful and helps make mass production go a lot faster. So here I'm just trying to plan out, I want to have one of each color represented on the card. So I didn't want to have duplicates, and I didn't want to have the same color next to one another. So I'm just going through and I'm roughly planning out how these cards are going to come together. giving me a rough layout on what looks good together. Now, I didn't line up that hill in the same spot on every single panel. So some of these are going to have to be a little bit different in order to ensure that it looks somewhat balanced. And I am trying to make sure that things are balanced left to right. There's, you know, an equal gap. But again, this is a very free-flowing, forgiving scene card. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to... it just has to look good to your eyes. That's really all that matters here. So here I'm just laying it out on my actual stencil panel just to ensure that I am actually liking how this is going to work, deciding if I need to trim those hill panels, you know, my snowbanks down any. And I feel like I can get a good size sentiment on there and fill in, you know, with something sparkly or a sequin or a gem or a pearl of some kind to fill in any open space that's there. So that is another step that I don't have to worry about. I don't have to sit there and recut something, creating another step for myself. These are fine how they are, the height that they are. I can still get that taller like church on there with no problems, even if, you know, the size of the panel of the snowbank is taller. I made these a portrait card just because I felt like that fit how many times I wanted to run things through my die cut machine better, but you could make these a landscape card and make it a much fuller scene, but I felt like these 5 images worked out just fine. So now it's time to stamp my sentiment. My sentiment comes from a stamp set that you probably have seen if you were participated in my Christmas card series last year, or in any of my previous videos. You've probably seen this before. This is called Ornaments. It is from Pinkfresh Studio. I don't know if it's still available, but there are tons of ornament stamps and dies and holiday things on the market. So use what you've got. This is just what I chose to use. So I wanted to use the Deck the Halls, and then I wanted to have kind of one of those block sentiments down below it. So I chose to put Deck the Halls, and I'm going to actually stamp these in 2 different colors of ink. Now, I pulled Concord and 9th inks because that matches my cardstock. That is another step that helps make things, when you're mass producing, go faster. If you've got inks and papers and stickers or coordinating products that you don't have to dig through to find things that work together, then that saves you time and extra steps. So I have the Concord and 9th inks that match the paper that was used for my die cuts. So I chose to use 2 of those inks. So I used the BRICKYARD and I used the EUCALYPTUS to stamp out my sentiments. You'll see me use my Mini Misty to help me stamp these out. That is another time saver for me, is some sort of stamp positioner. So I'm not sitting there with an acrylic block praying to the stamping gods that I've got it on there straight. It's already nice and straight. I just have to line it up one time. So that is another way to help me save time. If you wanted to save stamping, if you have the mini ink cubes, this would work a little bit better. I don't think I have the mini ink cubes in both of these colors, but it would have helped me not contaminate, get the red on the green and the green on the red when I was stamping. So what I eventually just did, instead of trying to make sure I was tilting it and not getting other ink in places I didn't want it, I ended up just stamping all of the Deck the Halls and then removing that stamp and leaving the Sending Love, Peace, and Joy and coming back and stamping that instead of stamping them both at the same time, which is a way to save time. But I felt like me trying to maneuver these full-size ink pads and make sure I wasn't getting ink where I didn't want it, it was just as fast for me to go ahead and stamp all of the Deck the Halls, then come back with the eucalyptus and stamp all of the Sending Love, Peace, and Joy. So that's just what I did. But if you wanted to save time, just stamp it all in one color, or only have one sentiment instead of 2. That's up to you. That is another way to save time if you need to. Once all of my greetings were stamped, it is time to assemble. So I went ahead and took my stenciled panel and glued that down to my card base. Then I am using my desk to stand up essentially my sentiment snow hill, and I'm gluing that down flat also. If these were going to be cards that you were going to hand deliver, you could pop up certain things. You could pop up these houses. You could pop up the hills. You could put snowflakes on here, puff embossing powder. You could put vellum behind the windows and pop all the windows out, put some vellum behind there, and color it yellow so it looks like it's glowing, like there's lights on in the house or the churches. That would be really cool. There are ways that you could step up this very simple design if you wanted to do, if you had more time, or if you were just going to make 1 or 2 cards and wanted them to be extra special. So I went through and I would do 5 cards at one time, ensuring that I didn't have multiples of the same color on each, and I had 1 of each of the die cuts represented, and giving me just a rough design on where things were going to go. And then I would take liquid glue and glue everything down flat. As you notice, there is kind of this open gap to the left of our greeting there. We're going to use some sequins to fill that in. All I did was go through and just glue everything down flat at this point.
Like the girls in class. Hallelujah, the Hallelujah song.
Yeah, you should have sang with them. You could have sang the Hallelujah song.
Yeah, but I want to sing it at home when I look up from my nap.
Oh,
Mom,
okay.
that's supposed to be Nini's hand.
Yeah, that is Nini's hand.
That is Nini's hand. Noah couldn't give me.
Is Mr. Noah Dale still sleeping? Yeah.
I didn't have a good sleep.
I'm sorry.
He woke up twice. I was so fast. I jumped right up and ran. Because I didn't want no to scream at me because I didn't want to.
When that was done, it was time for finishing touches. So I did these are sequins from A Colorful Life Designs. These are their Crystal Iris Aurora Borealis, and they are beautiful, and they shimmer and shine so perfect. They're very iridescent, and so they kind of pick up some of the colors that are around them. And I thought they filled in that space very nicely, gave it just a little bit of sparkle, but filled it in. And then on the trees and the houses in the church, I just did some Spectrum Noir Clear glitter brush pen, and that finished these cards off. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.